Here we go again, another episode coming to you for the XRP Pod, and of course today is going to be a little bit different because I am in the presence of Mikkel today. And how are you, man? Nice to see you.
Great, it's a pleasure to finally get to meet you in person and do this live. It's
a
really
lot
cool.
of people don't realize that we had never met physically. We have only been meeting in, our online show each week, so it's been good to kind of get everything caught up here.
No, absolutely. It was really surreal kind of had to finally have that experience. I mean, it's been a blast coming on the show and getting to meet in person and do this in person is just a really cool twist on everything. And this has been a blast as well.
All right, so you look at this event yesterday, absolute rock star lineup. We had Garlinghouse up there, David Schwartz up there. We had the guy from Vast Bank. I mean, it was Matt, the ETF roundtable. Star-studded performances by everybody in terms of where the market is. Let's go into a little bit about the strategy of what Ripple is trying to do here, because Brad mentioned a lot of different things that I think the audience needs to hear and understand. When you heard him talk about not only where they were around an IPO, where they are in clarity, what stuck out to you most?
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Ripple's strategy right now is what they're doing is they're acquiring critical infrastructure from the traditional system.
Right.
I think one of the things that has been lost in the crypto world is everyone wants to build these very crypto-centric businesses, but Ripple's focused on finance. And right now, finance happens on the legacy outdated rails. So one of the things Brad specifically talked about was how these acquisitions that they made this year are going to be critical for XRP. So what they're doing is they're acquiring critical infrastructure, prime brokerage, custody, and making it so this infrastructure that these traditional firms are going to plug into will ultimately become the rails, which will lead to the XRP ledger. One of the things he mentioned that I thought was super interesting was some of their plans on reacquiring shares off the secondary market, really building a business that is centered around enterprise, something that I think there's really going to resonate with investors, and also timetables. It seemed to me while he wasn't ready to say, hey, we're looking to IPO, it seemed like he floated the idea a little bit more than previously, and one of the only reasons I could think that they'd be sucking up all those shares off the secondary market was to control that share count going into maybe a little bit more of an exciting part of the back end of the year. I think if all that plays out, he could be alluding to something there.
Yeah, I think the indicators right now, when you think about just the strength of the roster of products that they've been acquiring over the last 18 months, including the strategy going forward. We had Jack McDonald on the final panel yesterday, and I point blanked him on stage and I said, what are you missing? And he said, he smiled a little bit, almost as there was something in the works. So if you think about the roster of acquisitions that they've done, what do you think's missing right now?
That's a great question. One of the things that I have thought Ripple would step into is going to be some kind of a market maker. Because if you look at what the XRP ledger is at its core, it's a decentralized exchange with XRP as that liquidity. Right now, market making happens in a very centralized way. But if you could have the XRP ledger be a super DEX for all kinds of assets, issued assets as well as crypto assets, taking a centralized market maker and making the core of that infrastructure, the XRP ledger, could be a very interesting way to create a lot of tokenization and a lot of volume on the native XRP ledger DEX. And that's how I think real world adoption happens. I think it's by a player like Ripple acting as almost an Amazon Web Services, going to these companies and integrating infrastructure directly into the XRP ledger, because they're always going to be the experts in building that business and integrating it, and they're going to work with players who are used to running their business, not necessarily being a blockchain business.
Yeah, ledger as a service kind of thing.
Exactly.
Which is interesting because when you think about adoption and the curves that we've seen, not only on B2B, but the banking side of it, we also had Vast Bank on, and when you look at former Ripple guy, really understanding where the banking industry is, what's missing there, what they need to kind of move forward. Ripple's in the perfect spot to play that intermediary. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of opportunity here, Mikkel.
Oh, I do as well. And one of the things that I think is lost in the community and really outside the community is what DeFi of tomorrow will look like in comparison to DeFi of today. If you look at the traditional financial system, people aren't really running around taking crazy LTV loans in terms of their most common activity, right? It's things like checkings accounts, savings accounts, brokerage accounts, very simple loan structures in terms of financing, mortgages. These are the types of high volume products, things that have a whole bunch of value running through them right now in the traditional system, that I think the XRP ledger has a really long runway in terms of build out.
Yeah.
If you listen to David Schwartz talk about where he thinks the future of DeFi is going, he talks about a lot of very simple products that dominate the traditional financial system that aren't built out in crypto yet.
Right.
So I think while we've seen a huge emergence of DeFi 1.0, which has been a lot of yield generation and a lot of different high-risk loans, I'll call them, I feel like the scenario we're heading into is institutional DeFi 2.0, where Ripple's recreating a lot of the financial services that already exist in the world today and bringing those to blockchain, and I think those will be a lot more sustainable and a lot more useful.
Well, and the banks have now started to really create this hybrid approach, which we're seeing it with SoFi. They launched their platform now where you can grab XRP, but I think that's still just an intermediary step before we really see onboarding of traditional banks, but also more importantly is the next generation banks and what those are going to look like. If you could put together a bank today and you say they're going to be a crypto bank, they're going to have traditional services, and they're going to have maybe some sort of DeFi play in it, what would that look like for you?
Yeah, well, actually, I think a lot of those application, new fintech sort of banks, the Robinhoods of the world, have done a great job on UI and attracting people and creating broad products that encompass a lot of what people are looking for. But if you look at the direction of where someone like a Robinhood is going, they're moving towards tokenization. It's those forward-looking banks, the ones that really nailed UI and really nailed customer acquisition, who are extremely innovative, and they're looking at ways to make their business more efficient, and that is upgrading the plumbing. So by moving over to blockchain technology and integrating a lot of tools like the XRP ledger, they're going to revolutionize the back end like they did the front end.
What do you make of Flare? Flare, of course, we had Hugo on yesterday. They're moving into a pretty accelerated mode in terms of being able to put XRP to work in DeFi through their F assets. You consider Flare and a handful of others that have kind of started in this space. XRP is still somewhat underserved in that space. Do you like that strategy, or are you more on a traditional route?
I do. I think people need to understand that what Flare is really a back-end tool. So what it allows people to do, especially large asset managers who historically couldn't have done this, is take something like an XRP, wrap it, and deploy it in different strategies and structures on other protocols. Vaults are a great example. A lot of vaults run off smart contracts. What Flare allows is for XRP to be wrapped and put in a vault, where I think we might see the future of asset management.
Big time.
Vaults allow for a lot of different things in terms of SMAs, where you can get out of the legacy fund structures that make a lot of these things vastly more efficient. What Flare is doing is unlocking XRP's ability to participate in a lot of these things. So I think a lot of people thought, oh, I just wrap my XRP, it becomes FXRP and yield starts falling from the sky. That's the mindset we need to get away from and understand that this is going to link to different strategies and different managers to run different strategies that might produce an income on your XRP. But what Flare is doing is allowing and being the infrastructure to make that happen.
All right, last point I want to get on is clarity. Many people on stage yesterday, I felt that they were trying to sidestep the clarity issue, almost to the point as if they knew something, and at whether or not they were confident that we were going to get through. We just shot a show this morning. You know, you got Tom Tillis on the board right now, or on the rail right now in terms of ethics and what the Trump family is doing. Now you have Senator Kennedy coming in with holding out because of what's happening on the housing business. So now you've got all these senators trying to hold this thing up. My question, Mikkel, does this get done?
So, you know, I think it's unfortunate what we've seen develop in terms of more firepower for the Democrats to attack the cryptocurrency industry. It kind of seemed like maybe we could convince everyone that we could get this jammed through. It seems like the Republicans have put a lot of hurdles in their way and firepower against it. It seems like things are getting tight. It seems like if you talk to people in the know, like you said, they're starting to dodge the question. I know a lot of people are going to feel very disappointed by maybe clarity not happening before midterms. I will say this, though. I don't think all this time is being spent for nothing. I think it's extremely possible what the Democrats might try to do is take over the House and then re-pitch some of this clarity stuff under what they're doing, so they can maybe change their narrative about being the anti-crypto party. While there are leaders in the Democratic Party, like Elizabeth Warren, who are very anti-crypto, if you actually look at a lot of it, Coinbase actually had a very interesting site breaking it down. There are a lot of people in that party who are extremely pro-crypto. I think they could potentially want to take credit for clarity, not give that win to the Republicans, say, hey, we did this, flip the narrative. I don't think they want to waste all this work. I think the banks want clarity. I want the cryptocurrency companies also want clarity. I think they get it over the board. I don't think they're going to want to hand it over as a win to Trump, though, especially with some of these things happening.
Well, yeah, with ethics now, you got Kennedy coming and almost giving them an out because of housing. You start to strengthen this position. I don't necessarily like it, but I unfortunately believe that's kind of the play right now that we're dealing with.